Hello everyone, and welcome again to the English Teacher channel. Today what we're looking at doing is creating an A-star response for the poetry response question for the Welsh Board exam paper. Okay, let's remind ourselves of the exam we expect to find this on. So this will be on the prose and poetry, and this makes up 35% of your total literature grade. 2-hour paper. The first section is your prose from different cultures, your mice and men, your mockingbird, etc. That will be with an extract and a choice of 2 essays, and in section B are 2 unseen poems that you're going to be expected to write an analysis and comparison of. Okay, before we start, I've got 2 tasks for you because hopefully you should be revising this already. Task number 1, what do you need to do within a poetry comparison question in order to achieve perfect marks? So essentially, what do you have to cover to tick off all the things on the mark scheme? And secondly, what method should you use to accomplish this? Okay, so pause this very quickly, note down how you think you should answer this and the things you should include. Okay, well here's the mark scheme, and it's split into different assessment objectives. So AO1 is your ability to basically write properly and use terminology, AO2 is your ability to analyse language, form and structure, and AO3, which is different to section A, is your ability to compare. Now, within AO1, you have to make sure that we're able to speculate, offer tentative judgment. So this could mean this, the writer has done this because. You need to be able to evaluate. So why has the writer created this kind of character, this relationship, use this line? Also at the highest level, we need to make sure that we can focus on very small detail and link it to the whole picture. Why has that been done in that way? AO2, again, we need to make sure that we can analyse language, structure, so sentence structure, plot structure, use of paragraphs, and form. So what kind of poem would this be? Who is the speaker? Is it first, second, third? And we need to be able to make sure we link all of those things to our understanding of it. Firstly, we need to make sure that when we compare, that they're sustained. They're not really obvious things. They're both poems. For instance, it could be that you're comparing really small details such as the use of perspective or the use of certain words and things like that. And if you're able to do those kind of things and be confident in your voice, they've both used this because, or they may use this in a certain way, however it's different because that's how you're going to achieve A-star. Alright, let's look at the method very quickly. You're more than welcome to pause this, but this is obviously key. If we revise this method and we apply it, you will achieve the very top marks. So remember, the question always asks you to engage with your thoughts and feelings. It's not other readers would think this, it makes me feel this, or when I read this I felt this, and that's really important. Firstly, with introduction, have a really basic overview of the 2 poems. Immediately begin to compare. Poem number 1 is about this, poem number 2 is also about this subject, however it seems to have this view. Okay, and then we start to analyse. Best thing to do is think of this a bit like an extract question. Focus on poem number 1 first and perform the following steps. You've got to go from top to bottom, and top for the poems is the title. So analyse the title. What do you think or feel the poem will be about looking at it, and why do you think that? Then we start to work our way through the poem. So we begin to analyse by looking at something from the first stanza, making sure we explore how it makes you think and feel, and how or why the writer has made you think and feel that way. So that's when you start to analyse the language, the structure, etc. So you can see, once you've made that thought and feeling, you need to show how the poet has made you feel that way. So is that particular word, is that language, structure, punctuation, sentences, stanza lengths, repetition, form, and again, the better your analysis, the better your mark will be. Once you've worked your way through poem number 1, all the way through to the last stanza, you repeat the same process again for poem number 2. However, what you need to do is, as you are making your comments and analysis about poem number 2, is that similar to what you've seen in poem number 1, and why? It's also important as you work your way through, just like the mood and atmosphere extract question, do your thoughts and feelings change, and really signpost that to the marker. However, this makes me feel this now because. Finally, in your conclusion, evaluate which one had the greater effect on you and explain why. Follow that method, revise that method as you would do any of the texts. You're guaranteed to do well in the exam. Okay, here's the question. The question's always pretty much exactly the same apart from the title. Across the top, it tells you what the poems are about. So there's no need to worry about, will I understand what the poems are about, because it tells you across the top. In the first of the following poems, the schoolboy, the chant speaker, and then the poet refer to their views on education. So that's what the poem's about. You don't have to worry about that. In the second, among the school children, the poet also explores their view of education. Done. So we know what these are about. We just have to look about what we have to look at the thoughts and feelings that they create on you. So let's look at how we can do this. Let's look at the planning stage. So I've not talked about the planning stage yet. Here's our poem, The Schoolboy. More than welcome to have a quick look through this. I also recommend that you might want to go back to this, and you can download this poem from anywhere, poem by William Blake. Let's look at what we need to do to plan. And again, planning takes time. You have an hour in the exam. I recommend you spend about 15, maybe even 20 minutes planning the poetry. If you think you've given yourself half an hour to answer an essay question for your texts, 40 minutes for the poetry is plenty of time. This is the planning. So you can see I've started off with the title. What does the title make me think and feel? Well, it seems to be something that obviously concentrates on a child at school. It doesn't necessarily give me any clues what it's about. Here you can see I've started to work out the rhyme scheme, which hopefully you're aware of how to do. And I've looked at the first stanza and I've said the voice, or the boy, loves the summer and nature. And I've sort of gone into further detail here. Birds represent freedom. I've also looked at the exclamation mark at the end of the stanza, and it emphasises the joy that they feel. And again, this is note form because you are trying to write this as quickly as possible. So obviously there's a feeling that there's immense joy about being free. Then I feel, look at the but at the start of this stanza, but there seems to be a clear contrast here. There's a shift. School seems to be cruel. It's like a prison. All of a sudden these birds, this nature, has been caged. So it's a real juxtaposition, so a real opposite to stanza number 2. That's stanza number 1, sorry. Then we move through. Stanza 3, we continue with the trap, the cage idea. Dreary shadow shows the voice sees it as oppressive. The lack of enjambment slows the meter, which reflects the slowness of the voice's day, suggesting that school has made it dreary. We've got drooping. These longer vowel sounds here make the day seem longer, more procrastinated. It's a good word for you. Okay, stanza 4. Feels angry now, so the voice now shifts and starts to question the reader here. How can they, feel angry at this imprisonment? These rhetorical questions really make us consider, the repetition of how seems to be almost criticising us. And you get the idea. We work our way through until right at the end, and we're picking out individual words. We're looking at structural features, but it's always how the poem's made me think and feel. And this should take you, like I said, we'll move on to poem number 2 in a moment. So you're looking for about 10 minutes in that first one. This is poem number 2. And I've only shown you a stanza for Yeats's poem here. And you can see the planning is exactly the same. But what I've done is I've looked at how I think and feel. And then I've instantly, underneath, said whether this is similar or different. And I put that in bold for you today. It's a very good idea to use different colours in the exam. Also, some people may prefer to use charts to note down similarities or differences, but again you can see that with the title Among the School Children, it makes me feel the speaker is with the children or part of them, which is different because it creates an idea of experiencing their lives rather than just observing it, as we've seen from Blake's poem. Also, if we move to the second line of the first stanza, a kind old nun in a white hood replies. So kind old nun, for me, makes me feel that there's a pleasant tone. Kind is pleasant, with the nun suggesting that God agrees with this. And this is very different to poem number 1, which not only creates a tone of sadness or engagement at being in school, but it also suggests that being away from nature, which is God's creation, suggests it is against God, whereas here, a nun being present suggests that God condones it. And can you hear my sustained comparison going on there? Here's some more points of analysis for you as well for you to look at. You're more than welcome to pause this to have a look at what you need to do, but it's important you analyse it in the same way, but then you need to start noting down whether it's similar or different. But let's look at how this would start then. So I'm just going to read the opening to analysis poem 1. So So both poems, The Schoolboy and Among the Schoolchildren, deal with the subject of education, but whilst Blake's poem shows a very strong dislike to school, suggesting it goes against nature and God, Yeats's work argues the opposite, that education is the best way to prepare children for the future. Notice that I am integrating my quotations. I very quickly said what they're about, and immediately I'm comparing. I'm showing the marker at A-star level. I can handle this with confidence, which is what the mark scheme said. Blake's title, The Schoolboy, makes me think, my thoughts and feelings, that this poem will obviously concentrate on a school child and their experience of school. However, the title does instantly make it clear on the poet's views on education, which is true. Rather than immediately exploring the school, Blake uses the first-person perspective of a child to help the reader consider the child's view of life outside of school, using phrases such as love and sweet company to demonstrate that when the child is surrounded by nature, the tone highlights to me the happiness the child feels. I also believe the clever use, I'm showing appreciation for the work, it's a little tip for you to help you get a star, of the metaphor birds, highlights to the reader a sense of freedom and ability to explore. I might look at more things from stanza 1, that's up to you. I'm just showing you an example here of moving through. So stanza 2. However, this immediately is contrasted structurally by placing the two ideas next to each other, by exploring the experience of school. Blake instantly makes the reader, or makes me feel, that school is a prison which removes any of the positive nature creates in the mind of the child speaker. So you can see I'm then going to look at my evidence, start to explore that, but you get the idea, it's my thoughts and feelings. We work our way through poem number 1 all the way through to the end, trying to get some individuals, some different ideas if we can. Now you can use alternative views, but you use them in reference to yourself. So I feel this, however it also makes me feel this, and that's a better way of exploring depth. When we move on to poem number 2, we're obviously looking to compare. And here, very quickly, just some useful phrases you could use when you get onto this section. So please pause it to have a look at these now. There's some just to give you an idea. It's not exhaustive, but there you are. Okay, start of our second poem. Just like Blake's work, Yeats also focuses on school in his work. But, unlike Blake, who initially appears to be just observing the child in his title, Yeats' style makes me feel that he is experiencing their lives from his adult perspective, rather than pretending to be the voice of a child. What I could do there as well, to extend a bit further, is say, well, why he's doing that. And I should be doing that in this piece. A kind old nun in a white hood is clever, as it makes me feel that school is a pleasant place to be, due to the lexical choice of kind. The use of the nun in white makes me believe that religion agrees with the treatment of children in the school, and that the use of white makes the intention of the school seem pure. This obviously contrasts, here's my comparison, this obviously contrasts greatly with the view of Blake, who is not only clearly negative towards the idea of school, but uses religion as a way of proving that it is wrong, as it seems that Blake believes that to be within nature, joy is to be with God. Yeats, however, uses the nun to demonstrate that God must therefore support education, because she's there, she's part of it. So you can see I'm analysing poem number 2 in the same way I did with poem number 1, however I need to also now bolt on my comparison, and it needs to be sustained and detailed, and we work our way through as we did with poem number 1, and finally our conclusion, I say which poem had the greater effect on me and why I feel that way. So thank you very much, guys. You're more than welcome to look at this again. Here is a link to look at some of the past papers, but don't forget subject, content, method, timing. Learn your texts, learn your method, and do this in the timing. The planning is the key to everything here, to achieving A star. Well done, keep working hard, and hopefully you'll get your A star if you follow these things.